Hey, are you in Calgary, Alberta? If you are, Besides Calgary, a not-for-profit grassroots organization for information security professionals, hackers, coders, students, and the broader tech community, is holding an in-person event on May 1st and 2nd at the Bow Valley College. They've got workshops, community groups, cyber, capture the flag, and a diverse lineup of speakers attracting hundreds of attendees. I'll put a link in the show notes, but you can just Google Besides Calgary. Letter B, Sides, Calgary. I'm glad to give a shout out. Calgary is one of my favorite places. And now, back to our regularly scheduled programming. Critical flaws in a popular compression utility negate system defenses. Microsoft patches critical zero-day exploits, but not in Windows 10. WhatsApp users are urged to update due to security flaws, and Happy Identity Management Day. This is Cybersecurity Today. I'm your host, Jim Love. Security researchers are warning all Windows users to update WinRAR immediately after discovering two serious flaws that hackers may be exploiting in the wild. WinRAR is one of the most widely used tools for compressing and extracting files, with over 500 million users worldwide. But older versions before 6.23 contain bugs that can let attackers run malware on your computer just by getting you to open a malicious archive. One of the bugs, CVE 2023-40477, involves a memory issue that lets hackers sneak past system defenses when a specially crafted recovery volume is opened. The other, CVE 2023-38831, is also dangerous. It lets attackers hide malware in a zip file that looks safe. The flaw could allow attackers to bypass Windows Mark of the Web, MOTW, security warnings, and won't be flagged in those cases, and no warning would be given. We should always be using the latest version of any software, but just to provide added motivation, these types of flaws, while not being detected in the wild for this particular software yet, have been used in real-world attacks. Google's threat analysis group confirmed that state-backed hackers have already used them to spread spyware like DarkMe and remote access tools like Remco's. The attack works by disguising dangerous code as regular documents or folders. Now, these issues have been patched in the latest WinRAR version 7.11. You can download the latest version from win-rare.com. And even if you think you're up to date, why don't you just go check? And remember to remind other people to update and that they need to go to the vendor's site for the software. I could see some clever crook offering a malicious link to supposedly fix this. And while you're reminding people about fixing this or upgrading, it's also a good time to remind them that they still shouldn't open any zip file unless you know who sent it and what's in it. Microsoft has released a security update addressing a high-severity zero-day vulnerability in the Windows Common Log File System, CLFS, that was actively exploited by the Ransom EXX ransomware group. It was tracked as CVE 2025-29824. This use-after-free flaw allowed local attackers with low privileges to gain system-level access without user interaction. The vulnerability should have been patched during the last Patch Tuesday, with updates available for most affected Windows versions. However, and this might be important to you, patches for Windows 10 x64 and 32-bit systems are still pending and will be released as soon as possible. Now, this might be a part of a new trend of slower responses to key vulnerabilities in Windows 10. Just another nudge for Microsoft to upgrade, but keep an eye open for this. The Ransom EXX group exploited this flaw to target organizations across various sectors, including IT and real estate in the United States, the financial sector in Venezuela, a Spanish software company, and the retail sector in Saudi Arabia. The attackers deployed the Pipe Magic backdoor malware to facilitate the execution of ransomware payloads on compromised systems. A critical security vulnerability identified as CVE 2025-30401 has been discovered in WhatsApp's Windows desktop application. This flaw could allow attackers to disguise malicious files as harmless attachments, potentially leading to unauthorized code execution on users' systems. The issue arises from a mismatch in how WhatsApp for Windows handles file attachments. Specifically, the application displays incoming attachments based on their MIME type, a descriptor indicating the file's content type. However, when opening these attachments, WhatsApp relies on the file extension to determine the appropriate program to execute. This discrepancy allows an attacker to craft a file that appears to be benign, but is in fact an executable file. If the user opens such a file within WhatsApp, it could lead to execution of malicious code without user knowledge. This vulnerability affects all versions of WhatsApp for Windows prior to 2.2450. Users are strongly advised to update their application to version 2.2450.6 or later to mitigate the risk. But this flaw underscores a common tactic being used by attackers, exploiting file attachments to deliver malicious content. Nico Chiraviglio, chief scientist at Zempirium, a mobile security solutions provider, stated, "Attachments remain one of the most common vectors for delivering malicious content. Just another reason to educate users about the risks associated with unsolicited file attachments and, of course, if they have to use these applications, keeping them up to date." Now, you may have noticed that we rarely celebrate all of the various days that are out there, mostly because I'm blissfully unaware of them, and I kind of think they're overdone, and besides, by the time I figure out what special day is happening, I've posted today's show. But someone reminded me that today is Identity Management Day, and more importantly, they sent me some data from a recent survey by Okta that started me to thinking. The survey revealed that Canadians are increasingly worried about identity theft, but don't appear to be doing much about it. So maybe this Identity Management Day, we can highlight some of that data. 72% of Canadians, according to this study, believe their identity will be stolen or used by someone else due to advancements in generative AI. 58% of Canadians are concerned about their identity being stolen, but only 21% feel confident in their ability to recognize AI-generated attempts to compromise their information. So the good news, they're aware we have a problem. The bad news, what are we doing about it? Not enough, and especially at work. Only 5% of Canadians appeared to be concerned about their work credentials and email, leaving organizations exposed. 5%. Well, it's clear that the system is not working. Why? Not because they're bad people. 68% of Canadians feel overwhelmed by the sheer volume of online accounts they have. 37% of them experience monthly login failures due to forgotten credentials, and 18% say they face this ordeal weekly. Which takes us to the core of the issue. I've always said, and maybe this is dumb, that if there are no inconveniences, you probably don't have value in the security you're using. In other words, you have to do something different to protect yourself, and doing things differently is uncomfortable for us. But we can't ignore how overwhelmed people are, and even I'm often using choice words when I can't log in because of some new feature or some change. But as a security person, I have to suck it up and live with it. The average person might just try to find ways around inefficient or uncomfortable methods, or just resist their implementation. But now I know a reason why I don't pay attention to these special days. We have the insight, but we don't fix the issue. It's just like that thing every year where they come up and say password is the most frequent password. We admire the problem for a day, and then we move on to our next daily awareness issue. Something real's got to change. I'm thinking I'm going to do a special piece on new identity solutions. I want to dig more into this myself. It's going to be a weekend show, but you can help me out. Let me know what questions you might have, And what would make that show more valuable to you? Because here's the present I'd like for Identity Management Day next year. I'd like to say we stopped admiring the problem. And that's our show for today. You can reach me at editorial@technewsday.ca. You can find me on LinkedIn, or you can, if you're on YouTube, just leave a comment under the video. I'm your host, Jim Love. Thanks for listening.